And then I chose this for one other very specific reason. It says it's automatic self-heating because these lithiums cannot be charged below freezing. And I don't mean it's not a good idea. I mean, they must not be. Hi everyone, welcome back to my next video. Today I want to talk to you about batteries. I have recently upgraded my system. I found that I had plenty of solar, but that I did not have a big enough battery bank. I had a 200 amp hour Lithium LiFePO4 battery bank, and I found I had a week of rain, and I mean it rained every day, and there was just no sun coming in. My batteries died after 3 or 4 days because 200 amp hours just is not enough holding power to get you through for an extended period. And so I decided I really needed to upgrade my battery bank, and I'm only going to buy a LiFePO4 because LiFePO4 has come down so much that it's competitively priced with anything else, and LiFePO4 is superior in most ways, not all ways, but in nearly every way is superior. One of the best things about LiFePO4 is it can be charged very fast. So if you're running it on a generator, for example, your generator can put a lot of power out in a very short time. This creates 1,500 watts of power. And so if I have a big enough battery charger, I can put 80 to 100 amps into the battery that quickly, amps per hour. So that's really, really good. And that's what I want. I want a LiFePO4. So I started the search for LiFePO4, and I knew that it was coming, so I'd been looking for a while. Ultimately, I settled on the LiTime brand name. And I'll tell you why this specific one in here just in a minute. I thought LiTime was a good quality product at a very low price. There are others that are just as good a quality at a lower price, and so you might think about those. So, and I chose a 200 amp hour battery because the form factor, you know, instead of two 100s, and it's just your rig. Maybe two 100s would be easier for you to fit in your rig. If so, then that's what you need to buy. I like the idea of just one big battery and the two terminals, so I don't have a lot of terminals, a lot of connections, a lot more cabling going to connection that terminals that can get corroded or be a problem. That's why I chose a 200. Now they make these in a 300 and a 400, and lithium is light enough. Another really huge advantage of lithium is that picking this up, this is still lighter than a 100 amp hour lead acid would be of any kind, AGM or lead liquid water. Lead acid. So it's light enough that I can easily handle this as a 200. Once it gets into the 300, the 400, they're getting so big and heavy that it's becoming harder and harder. Although I think the LiTime 400 is actually smaller than two of these beside each other. They actually shrink them down some more. And so in a sense, it's more space efficient. But I chose this. And then I chose this for one other very specific reason. As you can probably see here, it says it's automatic self-heating. Now, why would you care about a self-heating battery? Because these lithiums cannot be charged below freezing. And I don't mean it's not a good idea. I mean, they must not be charged below freezing. And so if you charge it below freezing, they will be irrevocably damaged and virtually destroyed. So you do not want to take a chance with this thing ever being charged while it's below freezing. And so then I tried really, really hard to avoid being where it's that cold, but man, it's going to happen. I've had times where I've been in places where the battery would go below freezing, and that's just all there was to it. So then you're out of power. I mean, you're just completely, you know, it doesn't matter how much solar you have, doesn't matter how much generator you have, unless you plug straight into the generator. You're just not going to have any power because you don't have a battery bank anymore. You charge them, you destroy them. Now, almost all of them come with a high temperature cutoff. If it gets hot, then they stop. They won't, the BMS, the battery management system, will not allow it to take a charge if it gets too hot. But they don't all have a low temperature cutoff. In fact, it is most of the cheap ones, and by cheap I mean $300, around the $300 mark for a 100 amp hour battery. At that price, most of them don't have the low battery cutoff. And a lot of the cheap ones, the $300, there's tons of them now, $300 and even a little less. There's one on the right now on Amazon for $279. They're even dropping below $300. That's amazing. You're absolutely essential. I wouldn't buy one of these without a low battery cutoff, because you'll destroy it and then you've thrown the $300 away, or $400 or $500 or $1,000. You can spend $1,000 for a 100 amp hour battery real easily. I have Battleborns in mine, and they're still right around $900 each. I didn't want to spend $900 on a battery that I'm not sure I'm getting my money's worth out of. So the self-heating function is really important. So not only will this have your low battery cutoff, it has the cable that goes down and measures and see the temperature, but it also then, if it gets cold, it will kick in heating pads. It's got heating pads built in all around the sides, and those will come on and it will warm the battery up. The low temperature sensor will find out and will allow it to be charged. So that is why I bought this battery. There aren't a lot of them. The cheap ones that have the low battery cutoff. So this was a 200 amp hour with the low battery cutoff. This was $900, meaning I paid $450 for a 100 amp hour battery with the low heating cutoff. And I think that's a good price. I don't mind paying $450 for it, because a 100 amp hour battery, because I have two of them, it's 200 amp hours. I paid $900, divided by half is $450. And so I thought that was a good deal, and that was good enough to me to go ahead and buy these. Now, if I had bought this without the heating pad, the exact same battery, it just won't have heating pads, it would have been $630, $315. That's still a good price. As good quality, just make sure you get one with low cutoff temperature or the heating pads. That's why I bought this one. One of the great things about lithium, big advantage of lithium over lead acid of any kind, AGM or gel, is that if you have an older battery and a newer battery, you can still mix them in the same system. Different sizes, although I think that's probably not a good idea, but you can, I believe. The BMS reads the power coming in and sorts it for the particular battery. It doesn't look at the entire system, it looks at this battery. So while an older battery has a BMS that says, I'm older, I can't take as much, it'll put in less, this battery will say, hey, I'm brand new, I can take a lot, I'll put it all in. So you get that individual control with an individual BMS, meaning you're not tied to buying all your batteries at the same time, same condition. To my mind, that's a huge advantage. That means you can expand your battery bank at any time with no cost or loss to you in battery capacity. So if you have AGMs and you have an old one and a new one, the new one will never be more full than the old one. And that's a huge disadvantage. Big advantage that you can have an old, and I mean by older, 1 year old in some use, and this new one, and it will still get fully charged and come to 100%, because the BMS will make sure this individual battery does it. Love that about lithium. Nearly everything about lithium is far superior. The cold is the one huge reason not to buy lithium. If you're going to be in the cold, you've got to get something that you know it's safe. So to my mind, the heating element in here was the thing I wanted to be sure it was safe, and that's why I spent a little bit more. $450 for a 100 amp hour battery is not bad, $900 for a 200 amp hour. I think that was well worth the price for what I'm getting. I love the form factor, the size, the reputation of the company. That's why I chose this one. One of the other great reasons to buy any LiFePO4 is the battery cycles. You get more battery cycles out of any lithium than you will out of any AGM. I mean, the best AGMs just don't do as good as the best of the lithiums. This battery, they're advertising it as 4,000 cycles if you take it down to 80%. So if you took it down to 80% every time, it will do that 4,000 times. That's a huge number, huge, huge number. But if you only take it down to 20% off, 80% full, then they're saying this will get 15,000 cycles. So the lower the cycle, the more you lose. And a shallow cycle, and because I'm going to have a very big battery bank now, mine will never be more than shallow cycling. That means I could get 15,000 cycles out of this. That's 10 years or more easily, as opposed to 1,000 cycles. Most of your lead acid, even your golf carts, are 1,000 cycles. That's a typical for a good quality golf cart, which would cost more than this, which will get from 4,000 to 15,000 cycles. So there's just, we're to the point now, it doesn't make economic sense to keep buying lead acid batteries, to my mind. And again, the big problem is still that cold. That lead acid can get cold and it'll work just fine. It certainly won't be destroyed. It won't work as well. You can only put in less power coming in and out. So there are disadvantages to a lead acid, an AGM, a gel, on when it gets cold. But it will be destroyed. So no comparison in the disadvantages. The self-heating solved that for me, and I'm glad I did it. Okay, I hope that helps you to understand my thinking when I bought this AmperTime in all the complexity of all those factors. Another disadvantage to the power station is that you can't choose your battery, you can't replace the battery. To my mind, that's a very big disadvantage to those. But okay, I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, like us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit that thumbs up button, bang away at it, and we'll talk to you later. See ya.